Well, hello everyone. I don't know how to start these. Welcome to our director's commentary for House. I'm Ethan. I was the director and main actor you see here on the screen. And
I'm Jordan. I had very little to do with this movie until the very end.
yeah, you helped. Well, you were so. This movie has the craziest production story, I think. So this goes way back to 2000 or 2020. This doesn't go that far back, actually.
All back to the year 2000.
This goes back to June of this year, actually, not that far back, but it feels like an eternity with just 2020 being how it is. But we had decided we were going to make a feature film each this summer, and like we were going to do it on our own. And so you had your movie, Oh Brother, that you made.
Shot that in June, released in July.
Exactly. And I was going to release, like, I think 2 weeks after you, I was supposed to release my feature.
Yeah.
So I was doing this one that was like about a guy who's dog sitting for this girl he likes, like an ex of his he's trying to get back together with, and the dog is abducted by aliens. Like, kind of a goofy movie, but I wanted it to look really good. And I shot about a third of that movie. And then I realized it was too much, and I didn't have a clear direction at a certain point, and my script was just undercooked and not finished. So I was like, well, shoot, what do I do? And I was getting really worried about it, and eventually I decided to jump projects. So then I started working on a feature about a guy with his imaginary friend, and it was just going to be kind of a goofy story about them. And again, I wasn't happy with it, but that was the first time I tried shooting a vertical movie on a phone, was with that idea. And I was trying to shoot it. I went house sitting at this point, and I was like, this is my last ditch effort. I'm going to shoot this movie. If I don't shoot it, I'm not shooting anything. And then I'm just going to bail on the project. So it comes to my second to last night of house sitting, and I have nothing that I'm happy with, and I'm super anxious about it. Oh, title screen, House, yay. And at like 9 o'clock at night, I just got hit with the idea of what if this dude was trapped in a house and it was this weird horror movie. And so I went to the 7-Eleven down the street. I bought 3 lighters, and I had my phone, and I just started shooting this. And I wrote like a rough outline that was like 8 scenes long. That was just like scene 1, he's drawing a map and he hears something. Scene 2, we're in scene 2 right now. He's hungry and he decides to go looking through the house. And it was written out just like that. And everything that's acted in between, I just made up on the spot pretty much. And so it was I've never shot a movie like that before. I also never shot a movie on a phone before. So it was a lot of just trying things and not really worrying about what the final product was going to be. Like, even shooting on a phone like made that easier, because it's like it doesn't have to look polished, because obviously it can't look polished when it's on a phone, especially when you're shooting like this, when it's in the dark and you just have no lighting you're working with. So that's how this movie came to be. It is
This version of the
movie, version 3.
Of the summer 2020 challenge.
2020 challenge. It's not even summer when this is coming out now.
No.
Yeah. But that's okay. I'm really happy with this. I don't know if I would have been as happy with the other things that I was working on. So I'm really happy that this is what I landed on. But yeah, it was really, I'm a perfectionist. I like my movies to look really good, which is why I'm a cinematographer. I like the look of it more than anything. I'm not as much of a writer. But I kind of was like really anxious about writing a movie. And that was what I was trying to do before. It's like, I'm going to be everything and it's going to be perfect. And then obviously things weren't perfect, because you can't just will yourself to write a good movie first go. So this was kind of me just kind of letting go of that idea and that notion. Like, I had a good camera with me. I think I had my EOS. No, I didn't have an R yet, but I think I had my C100 like in the wings if I wanted to use it. But I just forced myself to use the bare bones essentials, and then it just kind of freed me up from being worried about it being this polished thing as much.
Well, I think when you do it, when you take away the aspect of the script, I think these days a lot of especially with analysis and like film discourse, there's a lot of discussion on the screenwriting and the art of screenwriting, and that's all good and everything, but ultimately a film is not a screenplay. That's I mean, there is an argument to be made that a screenplay is an art of its own, but at the end of the day, it's still just a blueprint. It's just still a plan for what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't need that plan. And I think when the words become more important than the images, that's when it's not so much of a movie and more of a kind of, entertainment, kind of this other thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think I bias. I don't know. We're brought up on Hollywood, and I think that's kind of, I still up to this point viewed that as the standard, or it's like it has to feel this way, it has to be in this box. And then I think with when you showed me Joel Haver's work, I think that was kind of the start of me being like, oh, movies can feel completely different. And not that Joel was the first person ever to do this, but that was the kind of the first person I was like, oh, this just feels unique, and I really was enjoying it. And so when I jumped over to my Imaginary Friends movie, I was really inspired by him and what he did. Like with movies
Joel,
like Island.
not your imaginary friend.
Yeah. Because he made his movie Island, and I loved that so much. And so I was even going to do a Imaginary Friend movie, like had Paper Puppet Imaginary Friend. Like it was to that point where I was like, all right, I'm just going to go down
Plagiarize.
Plagiarize.
No, I'm joking.
Just going down that rabbit hole, trying, I don't know, just something different. Let myself be inspired by something different. But, I mean, obviously that didn't happen, and I went this route. But this just let me be open to trying something that I would have considered more out there, and I would have probably shied away from in any other circumstance. Like, I don't think I ever would have, if I had this idea, would have brought it and been like, all right, we're going to shoot this movie. Here's the script. Here we go. I think this, for me at least, would have had to... Oh, silence your cell phone.
I know, it's Twitter blowing up.
It had to be this way, though. Yeah.
Well, this gets to the point, I think this gets to the heart of what cinema is this expression of emotions, like through this experience of watching something. And it's like super simple, like, because it's not like the acting is super subtle. It's just like, it is what it is. You understand that this guy is upset and scared or hungry. You just get straight to that point. You understand that he's trapped in darkness, and we don't see anything except just what that light is illuminating. So you can let out these shots play out. This is climbing up the stairs, so this isn't exactly what I'm talking about. But like right here, this shot right here, watching him cross the frame in this weird angle like becomes really interesting when you just have the patience to stick with the movie in this weird kind of pace, this dreamlike setting. And I think this really gets to, like, pushing boundaries of what movies can do, or what you can do with like nothing. And that's at its simplest form, it's visual storytelling. No explanation, no polished script, none of that stuff, like none of that distraction, just like getting to like, this is what a movie is exactly.
Well, that was great. We could end the director's commentary right there. Thanks. Yeah, I when we were shooting our other movie, October, we would watch Francis Ford Coppola. We would watch his documentary, Heart of Darkness, for Apocalypse Now, because we were feeling that pain when we were shooting that. But there was a thing he said that I think stuck with me looking back on my experience shooting House, and he was saying, like, I'm going to butcher this quote, so just bear with me. But
I'm going to kill myself. I'm thinking of shooting myself.
That's how it felt sometimes. No, it was like, he was talking about like the biggest fear being a filmmaker is making a pretentious film.
Yeah.
And I definitely felt that during the process of all three of my movies, where it's like, I don't know. I think I put a lot of emphasis on like, what is it you're going to say with this movie? Like, there should be an importance of what you're saying, or trying to communicate with your movie. And for this one, it was like, I don't know what I'm trying to communicate here, other than just, you need to sit with this person in this weird experience they're having and just feel what they're feeling. And I was like, man, this is either going to work or it's going to be the most pretentious, stupid movie ever.
Well, that's cinema.
Yeah.
Is you shouldn't have all the answers all the time. That works for some movies, and that's
Yeah.
awesome in some movies. We're not like against traditional filmmaking, but
No.
that like expressing emotions and taking you on an emotional journey, not spelling out all the answers. That's when I think work becomes like it elevates it, because you don't have all the answers. You don't know what this situation is, but you're feeling what he's feeling, and you bring to the movie whatever your own like point of view is.
Yeah.
So someone could watch this and be like, this is about depression. Someone could watch this and be like, oh, this is about the death of a loved one. There's so many different interpretations to this piece alone. Like other great like experimental artists like Maya Deren, Stan Brakhage, like there's so many like elements to that experimental filmmaking where it's like you don't reveal all the answers, but you let the audience bring their own thing, their own baggage to it, and then when they're done watching it, then they leave and they think about it and they try to dissect it. And I think that's what a great movie does.
Yeah.
And so I think you don't need to have a message all the time. Is what you're saying. And with this, I think you like perfect example. Like, just like we know what's going on.
We know roughly what's going on. I still don't have all the answers to this movie. I have just enough that I could tell someone what was happening. But if someone came to me and said, I know what's happening, and they was something different than what I was putting into it, I still think they're right.
Yeah.
Like
it's designed to be up to your own interpretation, which I think is like the best way to make a movie.
That being said, you can read into this and find a specific my interpretation of it. That kind of grew into the second half of this movie, which we'll cover later. But yeah, so this was shot over 2 nights.
This first half.
First half. So everything that takes place in the house was shot over 2 nights. And yeah, it was shot really. I mean, I didn't give myself many breaks. I think the only time I took a break was on the second night. I like took an hour and a half, like 2 a.m. break to watch some Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and let my phone charge so I could keep going later. But yeah, the first night though was I wasn't even committed the first night necessarily. Like I wasn't sure if this was the right movie to make. So I made a cut that was like 10 minutes long of the first, like up to the kitchen scene, I think, where he ducks down.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit more I'd cut out from there that you got to see. But, and then I sent it to you.
No context.
You thought I was still making the Imaginary Friend movie.
Yeah.
So I sent it to you being like, hey, I changed directions a little bit. Let me know what you think. If this is bad, that's okay. And then, yeah. And I was like, whatever Jordan's reaction is, that is, I'll either keep doing this if he likes it, or I'll totally abandon ship if he doesn't.
And I was like, keep going. This is amazing. Like,
Yeah.
I want to see where this is going.
Yeah. And so here it is with the dog. So the dog, I was dog sitting, and Kirby, he kept hanging around, although he was pretty mad at me by the time we got around to the shots where he was actually in the movie, because he was like, all right, human, let's go to sleep. Because he had to sleep in the same room as me, because he's just an anxious dog. So
Little diva.
but by the time I got him into his shots, he was like, I'm tired. It's 3 a.m. I'm going to sleep on the couch. And so every time I'd come to get him, he'd be mad. So
oh my gosh.
there's so many takes I have.
You kept
of
waking
these
him up.
scenes. Yeah, he would get angry at me. He would try and leave the room I was in. So getting him to do shots like this where he'd just be laying down was so difficult, because he would keep trying to get up and
you would
knock
think
things
he
over.
would just
No.
sleep.
No.
Because it's like, you want to sleep, so just sleep in the shot.
Every shot that he's in was really hard. Not as difficult as when I was shooting the first dog movie, because my dog is scared of cameras, and she couldn't handle it. And that was the first challenge that made me have to leave that movie, was just the fact that one of the actors wasn't cooperating. Yeah, Kirby did much better. Although there were some shots I had to redo the audio for, because you could hear him just walking right next to me when he wasn't in the movie yet. So that was the only hard part with him. But he did good. He was a good dog. Oh, thank you. We're converting tapes in the background here. If you ever need VHSs or cassettes converted, let us know. We'll do that for you. But yeah,
a little plug there
little
for
plug
our
there.
side hustle.
Yeah. So this is kind of the first glimpse. This wasn't in the original script. Script with heavy quotations, but these dream sequences came out of our second half of shooting. I'm assuming if you're watching the director's commentary, you've seen this, but like this other version of myself was very different when I was shooting the first half of this movie compared to what he became in the second half of the movie. Because originally it was like this spirit that guided me through the house at the end and led me outside in like an original ending that I was kind of going on when I was shooting this earlier. Because it was more of a horror movie at first. I don't, if anyone's read the book House of Leaves, this was heavily influenced from that. And I definitely took it my own direction. Like, this doesn't really line up much with it beyond it's a guy in a house and there's an expanding stairwell at one point. But that tone definitely like inspired this movie. But again, I just didn't feel like you can't adapt House of Leaves into a movie. So I took it my own way, and just kind of considered this as, I considered it at the time as someone experiencing the house from that book, just in a different way that how it's written in the book. Like, this is a different character. If this was a sequel, that's kind of how I treated it. But at the same time, like, this isn't House of Leaves. So that's not an answer. If someone's trying to say this is what the movie's about, it ain't.
Yeah. Well, talk about how, like, so you finished the first half of the movie, and then you showed me a cut of everything. And
yeah, so there's the first 30 minutes of the movie that takes place all in the house, and it ends with me going under the covers at the end. Originally, it's so hard to tell how much I shot. Like, I didn't know by the time I was done shooting the house bits if I had shot an hour's worth of movie, if I had shot 20 minutes worth of movie. I couldn't tell. I thought I shot maybe 45 minutes of a movie, and I was like, you know what, if this comes out as 45 minutes, that's great. You know, movie's done. I wasn't going to add on to it. I was going to let it end super vaguely.
In comes Jordan to ruin the plans.
So I showed Jordan the cut, and he's like, hey, this movie isn't done yet. He doesn't even say, I think you should add more. He said, the movie isn't finished. And I was like, dang it. Because I agreed with him completely. But I wasn't going to admit that to myself, because I was I had like emotionally worn myself out, like trying to make these movies work. But he was right. And so we met, I think, one or two more times afterwards, and we had these like writers sessions. This is when Jordan came into the process. Up to this point, it was just me. But then Jordan came into the writing process, and we were trying to dissect what did the first half of the movie mean so we could make the second half. And at this point, I didn't have this access to this house anymore because I was done house sitting. So it had to take place somewhere else. My house wouldn't really work because I have family, and it just was crowded, and things were terrible. So,
and the first half ended when you had the blanket put on you. That was the
so
last thing that I saw.
Yeah, and I did have some shots. There was an ending that was originally written to come after that, where he like was able to leave the house or something, like day came or whatever. I didn't like it in the edit, so I cut it, and it just ended with him going under the blankets, and I was going to end it there. So we started talking, and we had decided that the second half would take place in the woods, like all at night still, but in the woods somewhere. And we were going to have him like experience a lot of the same things he does experience, but again, just the setting would have been different. Then, lo and behold, we had forest fires up here in Oregon that made it toxic to be outdoors.
We did not cause them, if that's what you're thinking.
The lighters had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So we were like, well, all right, what are we going to do? And so we tried even to the location we were going to shoot at, even there were fires about less than like up the road from our friend's house. Like the fire marshal had shut down, like roads were blocked. Like there was no way we were shooting there.
They had to evacuate.
Yeah. There was no way we were going to guerrilla filmmake it and like just go out there and break rules. Like it wasn't going to happen. So we tried contacting some friends of mine who lived further away, who weren't necessarily in the range of the fires, but the smoke was still really bad. So that just didn't happen. And then ultimately I was like, well, shoot, okay, I have access to like this building that we can block out the windows to, and we could shoot there for a day. So that's what we ended up going with. But most of the stuff that happened kind of stayed the same. Just little things changed.
It just shifted from the forest into just unknown darkness, pretty much.
Yeah, which I think I'm happier with. At least it was easier in the sense that we had more control over our space. And we did sneak in some woods in there at one point.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so.
And that was over a period of, I can't even remember. But it was a day. We just filmed for one day.
We started.
Not even a full day.
No. Well, I think we started at 9.
We calculated that in total, your 2 filming sessions plus the one with you and me, that was 19 hours.
Was it 19? I thought it was 21.
It might have been.
I think it was 21.
21. Okay, let's say 21.
19 to 21. We'll average
Let's be
out at
modest. 21 hours.
So we shot it in this very, very quick time frame. But, I mean, editing obviously went longer. This movie, the first cut really doesn't change much between that and what you're watching. Like, this final cut stayed really close to where I was first going. There's just little things I would tweak, or I would like move shots around or shorten things for timing. But a lot of things the pacing of this movie lets you play things out.
The dream sequence was the biggest change in this first half. And I think that's the biggest noticeable change for when I rewatch it.
Yeah. Nothing else really is different. I don't know if that makes me a lazy editor or if I just was so good on the first try. Who knows? But here it is. But yeah, I think I edited this movie mostly silently the first time too. Like, I don't think I was even caring about audio originally. Yeah, this is the first spooky thing that happens.
And when I saw this, this sent like, this is one of those examples where it's like when the filmmaking and the story is really simple, and it's just very simply, character is stuck in a house. And then this guy appears, this doppelganger of his, that makes everything, like, ups the ante in this big, strange, creepy way, where you can't, like, I don't know, like, it has this weird effect of, like, when you have a movie that's really simple, little things become huge things, story-wise anyways. Because now the audience is, like, you're trying to dissect it and be like, what does it mean? What's going on? And all that stuff. So
yeah, and I don't know. I lost my idea. I should have written things out, but that's okay. Yeah, I think this was one of my favorite parts, is the stair climb. I knew this was going to be in it, like, very early on. Like, this was a big part of the book House of Leaves. Like, there's this part where one of the characters is living on this flight of stairs for days, and it just keeps, like, expanding and going on infinitely. So that was something I just really wanted to capture.
What were the other, like, vignettes that you really wanted, like, when you first sat down and started writing? Yeah.
So other than the stairs, I knew that there would be an interaction with the doppelganger, that that hush moment we just saw. I knew that was going to happen. There was another one that I really wanted that I cut. There was going to be a bit where we saw him watching himself interact with, like, the dog again, like as if they were walking around or something. But that just didn't happen. I think I was tired at that point. I just didn't feel like I needed the shot. I think one that surprised me, or two that surprised me, that weren't written, that I really like. The first one was the bit where I find the room with the candles in it, like the bedroom. That wasn't, I didn't plan that. They just happened to have candles there, and I turned them on, and it was just like, a drop of mystery I could put in of, like, where these lights come from, who put them there, and, like, his reaction to it too. Like, I think I only did that shot once, and just, I didn't plan to, like, have the character, like, break down and start crying there, but it was just like, oh yeah, this feels right. Like, it was one of those moments. I don't know. As a writer, I think you can experience. I've had this a couple of times when I've written stuff, but, like, when you're writing and all of a sudden the characters take over and you're not writing anymore, it's just the character speaking kind of thing. Yeah. That it felt like that in an acting sense. I just knew that was the reaction, and that felt really good, knowing that I was in tune with the movie enough to know what should happen next, and it just could happen. And
it's feeling it. You gotta feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was, not feeling it in my other two movies a lot of the time, and I was just kind of like, I'm making a movie, plowing through it. And now it's like, okay, I'm actually like enjoying this process again. I think that's what this was like finding the process for myself again, because it got really stressful for a while.
I think the best analogy I've heard it with songwriting, writing, filmmaking in general. Oh, there's the first
subtitle. I wasn't sure if there'd be subtitles in this movie.
Yeah. There is a code, as Ethan said.
This movie is decipherable. Everything you need is in the movie. That's all I'll say.
Like Under the Silver Lake.
Like Under the Silver Lake. I think this is more clear than Under the Silver Lake.
Yeah, I think it is more clear. No, but the analogy I've heard was it's like fishing. When writing or making anything, it's not about like, it's just you got to go out there every day and you got to fish. Some days you don't catch anything. Other days you catch a big old trout or whatever. I don't know anything about fishing.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things with like filmmaking too, or like writing. It's just like you'll go out, you'll write, it's all crap, but then you get one little kind of thing, and it's like there's your catch of the day, and you just got to keep doing it. Because if you don't do it every day, it's not motivation, it's not inspiration that I've found. It's you just got to be disciplined enough to do it every day, and then you'll recognize when something is working and when it isn't.
Yeah.
And you'll latch onto what is and toss what isn't. And I think this was like a great just like you just felt it in the moment, and you just went and you filmed the half of the movie in those 2 nights. So that was that's awesome.
Yeah, I love this scene. I love the break where, it's mostly silent for the entire movie. We finally get like a conversation, but the conversation is so just like out there. You don't know what's being said or what's going on. But
what clues can you give people about the code?
I'll give you this. I call this guy the backwards talker because I just reversed his dialogue. I didn't know what his dialogue was going to be at the time, so I just am speaking ominous gibberish pretty much as the character. So I'll give what it's not.
Okay.
The answer is not what I'm actually saying, like verbally. Because I was just making stuff up on the spot. I didn't have a plan there.
So don't go to YouTube to MP4.
Don't reverse
download it and reverse it.
That's not what it is. Though there are other things that are reversible.
Oh, there's other details in
that you haven't heard yet because you're not listening to the audio, but I added them last night. So you don't know them yet. It only happens 2 times in the movie. So this is where the movie, like, you thought it was weird before. And now it gets really weird. Here's me crawling through some stinky blankets. They smelled awful.
Those were the nastiest smelling blankets I've ever...
They smelled so bad. They reeked. And I had to crawl through them. And they all smelled the same. So it was like a bedspread and like 2 other blankets. Like, it was bad. If you have a brother... This is just general advice for all you out there. If you have a brother who plays sports, tell him to wash his sheets more often and not just put them back in the sheets pile. Because that ain't right.
All those squishing sounds are real.
That's what it felt like.
The blanket was actually that wet.
God, it wasn't. Thank goodness. But it mentally felt that gross. I just had... Editing the sound for this was really fun. Yeah, adding the sound effects was one of the last things I did, and that really felt like it sealed together a lot of things in this. But yeah, so this is the location shift. We're no longer shooting at the house. This is the next phase of shooting.
Although you could interpret it like this could be the basement.
It could
be, or it could be the attic. Like, it's just unknown black space.
It's just a void.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to interpret it as, that works for us. We just needed a space that was dark. Yeah, I just love this visual. Is really cool. Oh, wait for it. Aye, there's 2 of them. Yeah, this was the part that let me really have fun with editing, when I started dropping things on top of each other. So there'd be 2 of me on a screen at the same time, and I don't know. The black space really lets you do a lot, because your blending is just, I'm blending black into black. Like, sure, it's grainy and Some monitors it looks better than others, but whatever. I think the point gets across either way.
I think we can all agree this is supposed to be watched on your phone.
Yeah, probably. But that being said, if you had like a giant projector screen, like
Yeah.
theater grade, and then put that vertical, whew, this would be a cool movie to watch.
Yeah.
My ideal viewing experience, we were talking about this earlier this week. I think you got to watch this alone in the dark. I don't care what screen you watch it on. It could be your phone, it could be a TV, whatever. But I think this is best experienced alone for sure.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, you have to be isolated with this character to really feel it.
And then you share that. Then you send this movie to your friends and be like, "Watch this alone, and then let's talk about it."
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, like you kind of said, when you had the first part of the movie done, and then we started talking about what the second half would be, it was fun to go back and try to talk about different interpretations, so we could leave clues and like little pieces of things for the second half, like designing these similarities and connections, but not necessarily answering what that means. Like the blankets are red, there are red apples, and stuff like that. What does that mean? There's this door that constantly appears. What does that have to do with the first half? Is that going outside? Is that going inside? Like, what is the... And so this was a lot of fun, kind of thinking about that kind of metaphorical potential for little things dropped in here and there in the second half in particular.
Yeah. And there were definitely things I cut out from the first half of the movie later on. Once we had a direction, there were certain things that were like, okay, this doesn't fit anymore. So I had to go through and almost like correct myself in the past, because I would make because in my head this was much more of a straight cut horror movie when I was first starting it, and then as I was shooting through that first half, it shifted into this more very experimental, what's the term you use where it's like very shoot, I can't remember how you described it. But whatever.
Confusing.
Yes, that we'll go with that. But as we were shooting it, it shifted forms on me, so I had to go back and like scrub some of the horror tropes, I guess, out of it. Not that they were bad or they were over the top or anything. I mean, everything still was in this, but there were certain things I would say that I thought would be hinting at where I was going that ended up being the opposite direction, and I knew they didn't fit anymore. So I had to go through and like cut out lines or things like that, just to make it more cohesive. Because that was one of the worries, was like, how do we make a cohesive story when the first half is one way and we knew we didn't have access to a house really to shoot this the same way.
And that's always the struggle with like experimental movies that I've made, where it's like you can either keep expanding, but then how do you tie it back all in together and making the ending feel like an ending? That's the thing that you can't really describe with words, is with these experimental movies, like, how do you end a movie that doesn't really have a like logic to it that you can easily see? So it's like, how do you make it feel like an ending even if it's not a big deal? That was my cameo.
Yeah, that was your hand, because I had to shoot the first part and then Jordan had to grab my wrist, and then there's that whip pan we hid the transition where we shot it a second time with me in Jordan's space. But there's a funny version of this where just some random dude grabs my hand. But finding the ending for this was, I know we were struggling with that, I think, the most of anything. It was trying to find a way to make it feel like it was over. I mean, that was the struggle from the beginning for me too. The original ending, quote unquote, was really, it didn't sit right, so I cut it. And then the only other ending I really had was going under the blankets. Even that didn't feel like a great ending yet. So it was like, okay, how do we... And that's what kicked off the discussion of adding on to it more and finding that ending. And we went back and forth, I think we had like at least 2 meetings just discussing where this movie was going to go.
Yeah.
And they were long discussions.
I mean, the ending how it is didn't become the ending how it is until it was shot. And then it was all done in editing.
Yeah.
Essentially. The editing is what brought everything together.
Yeah.
Which is one of the great things about like movies. Like, you can do that where you don't necessarily have to expand or like try to explain. You can just like, I don't know, revisit, re-show things and just do crazy, creepy things.
Yeah.
and it kind of works as an ending.
That shot there, I realized in editing after the fact, because originally when he was flipping that lighter, it was supposed to be the guy in the black shirt in front of him, but I realized I wore the wrong shirt. So it's just me. Now I'm like, oh, okay, meaning changed. But it doesn't, like, stuff like that you can get away with in movies like this. I honestly think if you're going to make a movie, I think you might have more fun making something like this on your first couple of goes than making like a traditional feature. I'm not saying, I mean, if you want to make a traditional feature, that's great. And short films, I think you can get away with, telling a more normal story. But I think this is something everyone should at least try. I love that cut. There's a cut in there where he spins. It's like he goes further away. I think that was such a fun edit.
Nice.
But yeah, I think this was helpful for me creatively in a way I didn't expect. I thought I had tried to do something like this, like one of my first directorial debuts, more or less, years ago. You can still watch this movie on our channel. It's called 8. And I think you'll see a lot of similarities between these two. But I was very, like, that was a movie that I just felt like I didn't go far enough. I think this was an experiment in pushing myself way beyond where I felt comfortable. And I think in doing that, I was able to, I don't know, just understand myself as a filmmaker more and what my interests were. I love this.
Yeah.
Horizon. The sky was perfect that day.
It worked out so well. Yeah.
I mean, it was a little sketchy walking around in the forest with a lighter, having
and this was
2 weeks prior, the giant forest fires going on, that we made sure to shoot really quickly. Because there were houses around and stuff. Piano. What does it mean?
Oh yeah, I forgot about the piano. Yeah.
The piano, the excuse to add in a soundtrack.
Yeah, because this was going to be all silent, wasn't it? Until the. I don't know who suggested it, but it was like after you added music, it was kind of like
you pushed for music.
Okay, it was me. Okay, I pat myself on the back a little bit. No,
it was a great decision.
No, but it was
absolutely agree with you.
It felt like after you add that little bit of piano, it's like you can't go back from that. You got to keep going. No, because it was your score. Because
I added in this bit, but that was where it was going to end. Was because it was all like supposed to be in-world music, so he's playing the piano and then the music keeps going, then he hears it on the record player and it reverses and all this stuff. But when you heard that and it cuts out after I'm eating the apples, you were like, this needs more. And I think that was a great decision. And you wrote the second half of the track. So the first half is just a really weird Kevin MacLeod track, which I love. We support him.
Yeah, our favorite composer. He's been supporting us for years.
So yeah, I just found this weird piano track. It was going to be originally like I wanted to find some piano composition of like Mozart or whatever, something. But I was like, because I was playing piano here originally. And there are bits here where I'm just hitting individual notes. That's me. But I was like, the stuff I played, I was like, I didn't care. I was like, there's probably something better I could put it in, like swap out with. And so I found this little track of just like weird notes that just were very unnatural sounding together. And I was like, I think this will fit. And it fit really well. But then it ended after I started eating the apples, and it was going to go silent for the rest of the movie. Yeah, so you wrote a track. That was wonderful.
The fast stuff.
When
it's like really fast and it's just kind of like John Carpenter, like kind of scores, like it's like just repetitive, just over and over and over the same thing, kind of.
Just like my movie.
I know. Well, that's kind of like I'm not a composer, but I can do music, and I'm definitely. You can do a lot in GarageBand when you know what limitations there are. And especially if you know like melodies and just kind of rhythm and that kind of stuff, because it's like I love like John Carpenter and Philip Glass because their stuff is like really, I don't want to say simple because it sounds like an insult, but it's like it's repetitive, but it doesn't necessarily repeat. It evolves, but it evolves slowly. Like, so they'll be playing, I think of like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good example. I can't think of anything. But like when they have a score, when they have a melody going, like Philip Glass, for instance, it's like the same thing for like 32 bars. And then he'll change one note. But it's the same thing, but it's just he changes one note. And that like shifts the mood. It like changes. It makes that change greater, which I think is kind of like this movie where it's not the same thing, but it's very slow, very drawn out, very simple, in a good way. And then one thing will happen, and it's a little thing, but it feels like a big thing.
I love this shot here.
Yeah,
where this coming to the table and it just lights up the whole bottom.
Yeah, it's great.
Jordan on the camera over here.
My least favorite thing to do.
I made him redo this shot. So this space we had to black out. There were so many windows in it.
The windows.
And it was a pain in the butt. So we dropped down low on the table to block some of the windows that we just couldn't cover very well. So it was like we did it several times, and it would always peek through a little bit somewhere. So we had to keep doing it over and over and over until. So it was a tricky space to shoot in, but again, it was definitely like it was better than nothing.
Yeah,
but it wasn't perfect, but that's okay. I love this scene. This is probably my favorite scene in the movie when he gets to the table. This is what I think of when I think of this movie, is this part. But originally this was all going to take place in the woods too.
Yeah.
Picture all this in a forest. That's what the original ending was going to be.
The original idea was it was a feast, like a big feast, right?
Mm-hmm. It was going to be tons of food. Apples was always an idea we had. I don't know why, but we were just like, it has to be apples. There has to be tons of apples too. But there's going to be other food there as well originally. Because I don't know. I think that came out of the fact that in the second scene, he's hungry and he's always trying to find food. So it was like, all right, I'll give a payoff for that.
And there is a symbolic significance to an apple.
Yeah.
Like, throughout mythology and stories and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But also, there's the one dream shot where you're holding the apple with two hands.
Yes.
I was like, can we do a Twilight reference? And you're like, why? And then I was like, because it'd be funny.
And so we did it. So when I'm holding the apple in the first dream and I'm bringing it up towards camera, that's
Twilight.
That's Twilight, just if anyone was wondering. If you thought that while you looked at it, you were right.
Yep.
It just seemed funny.
It just, vampires, get the idea of vampires in your head maybe.
Yeah.
That could be a possible interpretation.
Who knows?
We don't know.
I don't think we even addressed the creature in this movie yet. Because there's all these sounds.
Oh, yeah.
So if you've read House of Leaves, the creature, there's like a minotaur creature that is throughout the book. There's all this other stuff, but I was like, all right, I'm going to lean into that really hard because then it's like a maze. I spoiled the book for you if you haven't read it. I'm so sorry. But I mean, it's so much more. Read it anyways. But that's like a huge thing. So I was like going to lean into that. I was like, okay, the house is a maze. There's a minotaur in it, like old Greek legend kind of thing. So I was like, I knew we'd never see it. So it was always going to be a sound thing. So that's kind of how I played it through the first half of the movie. And then we started discussing like what we thought was quote unquote really going on. So we needed a concrete idea to work with just to give ourselves a framework. Otherwise we were just wandering around. So the creature we ended up like giving a backstory to, and we gave this whole world kind of a backstory just so we could kind of work with it. But yeah, the creature is in the movie. I don't even know where I'm going with that. There's a creature in there.
There is a creature. That is one thing that was planned out.
Yeah.
But again, like,
is there?
Is there? Like, I mean, like that again. That's just kind of that was the idea.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily what the movie is. If you don't see that.
Yeah. So I was gonna get so many glass apples, and
I
I went to Goodwill, and there was only one.
I love this. This is my favorite part of the movie. I think this biting sound effect, because that is a glass apple.
Yeah, that's glass, and so it was so fun to add in those sounds because the second you drop them in, it took that scene from a 1 to a 10 in terms of just uncomfortable. That's a real apple. I did not take a bite out of a glass apple. If anyone was wondering. But yeah, there was supposed to be like tons of apples, like glass food, and then at this point they would all become real food. But then I only had the one apple, so we just made do, and it works. I think it's great. So we just went to the store and bought a ton of apples.
We did it once. We had 3 cameras going.
Yeah, I ended up only keeping the one take because I just really liked it. But there were 3 angles we had. We had like a handheld shot, a profile, and then this head on. And I just liked the head on the most because I didn't want to cut around to make it seem like we did it in multiple takes either.
Yeah.
I wanted it to feel like just one long thing because I had to do this. We could only do it once.
Well, I mean, you could have done it more, but
I didn't want to do it twice.
To like, like
it was painful. because like eating this many apples at once, like the insides are soft, but like the skin like wrecks your gums. It hurt so bad afterwards, like 'cause you get it all jammed in your teeth. Ugh. And I couldn't even swallow the apples fast enough. You'll see me, I'm just like spitting it out practically because I can't like get it down quick enough.
So what does it mean?
What does it mean?
What does it mean?
I have an idea of what it means, but it's probably my like most questionable answer that I have. I think someone could come up with better reasonings for some of the things in this than me.
I think so. But at the same time, like, hey, you want to send us like $15? We'll tell you what.
I mean,
we'll tell you what it means.
But you could search and find most like
the code is in here.
It's spelled out. It's spelled out for you in this movie.
Yeah, so
very
just send
directly.
Us, so just send us $15 regardless.
Send me $15, I'll make a sequel.
Yeah.
It would have only cost me like $7 if it wasn't for the cost of buying the apples and the sheets to black out the windows.
So you bought lighters and the apples,
and then I bought the sheets to block out the windows. That was the most expensive thing. Was the sheets, but I'm going to resell those because they were moving blankets.
So three things, probably under $20, right?
Yep, because those candles were mine. The original candles you see that are like electric candles, those were just happened to be in the house. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Like the reason I was so happy to have those was because you burn your thumb on the lighter all the time using it as your only light source. So I had to buy 3 so I could switch through them. But the guy at 7-Eleven was really annoying and wouldn't let me buy 3 of the same color because they were like all kind of mixed in this weird order. So I was like, can I just get 3 black lighters? He's like, how about a black, a blue, and a yellow? I was like, all right. I didn't want to be a jerk. Oh, what's under the table?
Yeah. More stinky blankets.
This is so, like, it's either a really funny shot or really interesting. It's just a funky angle, but...
Well, depending on your video compression, too, it almost looks liquidy.
Yeah.
Like, if this was really pixelated, you'd be like, oh, yeah, that looks kind of moist and, like, liquid.
Yeah. If I was shooting this for real, quote unquote, and like had a camera and a crew that was like professional, I would have totally slimed the heck out of these blankets and made them super nasty.
This is very
that's too much work.
much like I don't know if this is a very obscure reference, but like Matthew Varney, he's an artist from the 90s. I think he dated Bjork for a little bit. It's like his claim to fame. But he made this video series called the Cremaster Cycle. And they are really expensive, really elaborate, really confusing art pieces, essentially. They're video art. And this reminds me of one of them, where a dude's like crawling through this thing, and it's... Look up the Cremaster Cycle. Just look it up. It's weird and it's bizarre. It's like video art from the 90s.
Huh.
I think there's like 5 or 7 of them, or 6. I can't remember. But essentially, you can't see it because the dude was like, who the museum that owns it or whatever, because the museum owns it, like, yeah, you can only see this when we decide to screen them.
Oh, that's annoying.
But you can't, so you can see pieces of it online, but you can't see the whole thing.
Yeah, I love black and white. There was a time where I wanted this whole movie to be black and white, but I was glad I got to at least work it into the dream sequences as black and white.
A similarity I just realized between October and House.
Yeah. Another one.
Yeah.
We definitely feel like these movies borrow from each other in a way. Oh. Yeah. He made it.
What does it mean to make it?
This movie, who knows? Yeah. I mean, at a certain point, I forget what I'm talking about because I just start watching the movie. It draws you in a weird way. Not to pat myself on the back here.
I definitely feel like I feel that, like, again, we're biased because we worked on it. But like, I think there's some interesting I think this proves that you don't need good gear to make a good looking movie. Because as long as you care about lighting and composition, that'll do a whole lot for you.
What does this mean?
I know. This was intended to be like our little glimpse of like the creature. Like this is like our direct reference, visual reference to the creature.
Yeah.
Whether or not you read it as that, that's like all up to you.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you think. I don't know.
Yeah. The end.
Yeah.
Wow. Crazy movie.
Yeah.
I think you could 100% say that. Certainly. Crazy movie.
Yeah. I Back to Earth, that's the name of the track.
Yep. I was going to encode it, but I didn't feel like it.
That's a little
what
hint.
was that? What was that there at the end?
Yeah, look, in the credits lies the key, the answers.
Why, you're just going to give it to him like that?
Well, I mean,
if they made it through this, I think they deserve a little bit.
Well, I mean, with the name Back to Earth of the music track, I think that's the musical hint.
Yeah, that's the musical hint. And then
I can't tell you what the other hints are.
Yeah. I mean, there's really only one other hint, and then the rest of it is, if you want to take that, go for it. If you want to interpret it on your own, that's cool too. But that's House. We hope you enjoy it. Comment down below if you have fan theories.
Yeah.
Because I would love to hear what people think this movie means.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, yeah, I think people could have some really cool ideas about it that are better than mine. So let us know. But thank you for watching this. Watch our other commentaries as well. If you're into that, we have we have 3 now, I do believe. Maybe 2. If there's only 2, there's a third one coming soon.
Yes, by the end of this week. By the time you're listening to this. Wait, when are we? I don't know. Okay, there's
going to be a card that will pop up. We've never done that before, but there's a little card up top that pops up, and click on that. And you can check out the other commentary from us. But thank you so much for watching. I don't have anything else to say, so I'm going to let them go.
Okay.
But goodbye.